If the city clerk's ready, I am.
All right, we'll return and move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Kramer, can you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'd all remain standing for a moment. This week, our community lost Robert DeWalt. He was a very active member of both the senior board for our PEG TV station, and his family has meant a lot to this community. So if we could take a moment of silence and remember him and anyone else you may have lost recently. Thank you all. Moving on to item E, adoption of the agenda. Mr. Fleur, are there any changes to the agenda?
No modifications, Mr. Mayor.
Make a motion to accept the agenda submitted.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Purdock, a second from Vice Mayor Overton. Please vote on your portal.
Aye.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you. Moving on to presentations. First, a presentation from the Lakeshore Lions to the Highlands Senior Center. Would the Lions please like to come forward? If you could also be joined by the board of the Highlands Senior Center, that'd be wonderful. And the volunteers as well. Thank you all for coming out.
Come on up. The more the merrier.
If you guys would like to grab the microphone here and
Sure. Just grab it. I'm Ray Bridges, Lakeshore Lions Club. On behalf of the Lakeshore Lions Club, proceeds from our crab feed, we'd like to donate $5,000 to the senior center's Meals on Wheels. Wow.
So I'm going to step up here and I'm going to say thank you so much. Can I take this over here?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that. That is over 1,000 meals for our seniors, you know, and that's so you got to think that your donation is feeding 3 seniors for a whole year. You know, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but it's so much to us. You know, I mean, I'm so heartfelt that you guys have chosen us to help support us. We appreciate, you know, what you guys do for us and what you do for our community. So I just wanted to kind of introduce, there's some of our Meals on Wheels drivers here. So we have Jim here who does a route, Danda does a route, and Jean back there, she not only does a route, but she also helps, and we have a new program called the Pause Program for our seniors, because during the pandemic, we found that they were feeding their foods to their animals. So she helped me get a program going, and lo and behold, Meals on Wheels of America has granted us a grant to help get that program really off the ground. So you know, they're detrimental to our community for doing these meals that they do for our seniors. We serve over 200 meals a day, just Meals on Wheels. And in our congregate, we serve anywhere from 60 to 100. So, you know, there's sometimes we're putting out over 300 meals a day. So I don't think people realize how large our facility really is. But right now we're running out of the Masonic Lodge, but hopefully we'll be back soon to our regular senior center. We can get our kitchen done, so we're on the move. And then I have some of my board members. Actually, this is our president here, Stephanie, our secretary, and our treasurer is Joyce Adams, and we have Michelle, and then we have David up here. Our mayor is also on our board. So, I want to just thank you guys so much, and, we so appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you. Well, Vice Mayor Overton, if you and your crew can stay up front. As if by unique coincidence, March is the month for Meals on Wheels. So, whereas March 22nd, 1972, President Richard Nixon signed into law a measure that amended the Older Americans Act of 1965 and established a national nutrition program for seniors 60 years and older. Whereas the Meals on Wheels Association of America established the National March for Meals campaign in March 2022 to recognize the historic month, the importance of Older Americans Act senior nutrition programs, and raise awareness about senior hunger in America. Whereas the 2024 observance of the March for Meals campaign provides an opportunity to support senior nutrition programs that deliver vital and critical services by donating, volunteering, and raising awareness about senior hunger. Whereas volunteer drivers for Meals on Wheels programs in Clearlake are the backbone of the program, and they not only delivered nutritious meals to homebound seniors and individuals with disabilities, but also care and concern and attention to their welfare. And whereas senior nutrition programs provide nutritious meals to seniors throughout the city and help them to avoid premature or unnecessary institutionalization. Whereas senior nutrition programs also provide powerful socialization opportunities for millions of seniors to help combat loneliness and isolation. And whereas senior nutrition programs in Clearlake deserve recognition for the contributions they have made and continue to make in our local community. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Clearlake does hereby proclaim March 2024 as March for Meals Month and urges every citizen to take time this month to honor our senior nutrition programs, the seniors they serve, and the volunteers who care for them. Our recognition and involvement of the National 2024 March for Meals campaign can enrich our entire community and help end senior hunger in America, so no senior goes hungry. Dated the 7th of March, 2024, and signed by me.
You don't borrow up there. Good job, Mayor.
All right, moving on to item number 4, a presentation of the Clearlake Integrated Preparedness and Resilience Plan for Dresden Muscle Management. Dresden.
Good evening. My name is Angela De Palma Dow. I am the Lake County Water Resources Invasive Program Coordinator, and I'm excited to be here tonight to be able to share.
Excuse me.
That wasn't me, right?
No.
Okay, I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm excited to share about our response and containment plan for invasive quagga mussels And I really want to thank, we got funding for this project through the United States Fish and Wildlife Service to create this plan. And then we got some great consultants from Creative Resource Strategies and Conservation Collaborations, Lisa DeBrequier and Leah Elwell. They live in areas that are under snow right now, so they could not participate. But I'm indebted to them and their expertise in putting this together. And if you have any questions or you think you see a quagga mussel or invasive mussel or something on the shore or in the lake and you're not sure what it is, if you follow us at Lake County Water on Facebook, you can just send us a message, ask what it is, and I'll respond very quickly. And if it's something really cool or unusual, I'll come out and look at it. So I encourage anybody to report stuff to us. Is the thing... Clicky click. Oh, too much. Go back. Oh. Okay, so this is the intro. It's only be about 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to first introduce our current prevention program. And briefly, I'm going to talk about how we developed our response plan. And there's going to be some specific points in the plan I'm going to point out. And then if there's any questions and answers. I'm not going to go in too much depth about our prevention program. I did do a presentation to the Board of Supervisors March 9th, 2021. It's the 1:30 item. So I talked about half an hour about our prevention program and how it works. So if anybody has any questions, you can always refer to that. And this is really what we're preventing and what we're planning for. So imagine Austin Park shoreline looking like this. All that work you guys put in to make it very accessible, kayak rentals, places safe to swim, and the shoreline looks like this because invasive quagga mussels, they live and then they die and they shed their mussels and they wash up on beaches. And this is basically a non-usable, non-accessible public space, among other impacts. And this is what we're talking about. These are what invasive quagga and zebra mussels look like. So they're very small. At the most, they'll get about 1 inch. And they have pretty sharp edges, and they're striped, hence the name zebra mussel that they got. And they don't look like anything else that we have here. There's no native mussels that are this small, and they look kind of like really small barnacles. And you can see on the left bottom how they can colonize a boat prop that's been sitting in a water body that has infested with quagga mussels. And they can also colonize on living things, and basically they could suffocate this crayfish that they've colonized. So pretty bad critters for multiple reasons, and this is what they look like. If you see anything that looks like this, just let me know. Call me, report at Facebook, anything, get it to me.
What do you do when you find some?
We're gonna talk about that today.
Oh, okay.
That's a great question for this. So I want to shout out to our ramp monitor program. So the prevention program we do not have quagga mussels. And this program works because our ramp monitors work. They are the essential bloodline of this program. I have about a staff of 14. They're part-time, and they live on the lake, they fish on the lake, they love the lake, and then they also now work on the lake for this program. And they do many things, inspect boats when they come in, they talk to boaters that are regulars, make sure they haven't left county somewhere else that's infested, come back. They also inspect things like we had a dozer that went in during the drought to do some lake work in a channel, and he was inspecting that dozer because it was gonna go into our lake and wanted to make sure it was also invasive mussel free. So they're a great team, I love them, and I just really want to give a shout out to all the hard work that they do. So there is a need to plan for a quagga mussel introduction, so thanks for the question. We are a fishing destination. People come from all over the country, all over the continent to come and fish in Clearlake waters. So we get a lot of boaters every year from other places, and a lot of those places have mussels, and they come here, and so there is a need for us to prepare for the unfortunate incident that we get an introduction. And there's an economic toll to this. So we rely on more than just $1 million annually for just fishing dollars. So the cost for fishers that come here and spend money here in our county is estimated about $1 million. But of course, there's a lot of other uses for the lake, and people come to the county and enjoy the lake. And so that cost is a lot more than just that. To kind of back up on a broad scale, here's costs of invasive mussel management at the national, regional, and then state level. So nationally, it's about $140 billion in annual cost to just manage mussels once they're in a water body. In the Great Lakes Basin, which is a huge basin, all the Great Lakes have invasive mussels, it's about a $30 million annual cost just for the monitoring and control. And in California, the estimated mussel damage is about 30 billion just for drinking water systems. So not including recreation losses and all that, it's just for the drinking water systems. And unfortunately, these numbers are kind of outdated. They're 2012, so the cost of inflation and the spread has probably increased these. So when we look at Clearlake, when voters come from out of county, it's part of our screening program. They report where they were last. We want to know where you guys came from before you were here. We also track where they're registered, but we really want to know where they were before they came here. And so what this map is showing is all the locations of where they were before they came to Clearlake for the different years we've been, the recent 5 years we've been tracking them for this program. So you can see there's a pretty good spread throughout the continent. And then we're going to put up a map that shows you the current spread of invasive quagga and zebra mussels. And so you can see the overlap here. So the green dots are the invasive zebra mussels, and the yellow-orange dots are the invasive quagga mussels. And I'd say the quagga mussels are probably more aggressive. There's been water bodies that have had zebra mussels, and then the quagga mussels come in and colonize over the zebra mussels. But they're both horrible. But you can see some overlap within where the boaters are coming from and where the mussels are located across the country. And there are mussels in California. So here in Southern California at the bottom is where we have quagga mussel-infested water bodies. So anybody that's coming up here to Clearlake from any of these counties or nearby counties, our ramp monitors are on alert. Our vendors that sell the stickers and do screenings are on alert, and they ask a lot of questions, and they'll do inspections on boats if it's been within a month time that they've been down there, because we don't want any of those mussels moving up. And here we have an example kind of close to home in the Snake River in Idaho. Last year, there was a discovery of juvenile quagga mussels. So quagga mussels, when they're babies, they're microscopic and they float in the water, right? So the babies released, they can float in the water, and then they can settle, and that's when they grow into their adult form of the little mussel. And so in Snake River in Idaho, they found juvenile quagga mussels doing some sampling. And basically what they did was shut down everything around that area where they found the mussel. So this had fishing bans, no hiking, no camping. Nobody get close to this part of the river because we don't want to risk anything moving out of this river if there's mussels in that water.
How did they treat it then?
Yeah, they did. There's a treatment plan. The villagers can live in small amounts of water, so that's why they closed it, because if you have, a floaty tube and you fold it up and there's some water in there and it stays wet, that could transport mussels. And what they did is they did a treatment plan. The time that they found the mussels was close to the end of season. So they did a treatment as much as they could, but then the river and everything gets icy and snowy and ice is over, and they had to stop all treatments. And usually the juveniles don't live in cold water, so we're hoping between the treatment that they didn't spread. But we're not going to know until spring and summer when everything thaws out and they can do monitoring throughout the whole system. And then just to put this in perspective regionally is that the Snake River Basin goes through Utah, Wyoming, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, and Nevada. So potentially there could be mussels in that whole system. They are monitoring, but you saw the overlap from the map earlier, and there's a lot of boats that come from that area. So I'm not trying to put a whole bunch of gloom and doom at you, because now we're going to talk about the plan that we put in place to prepare for if there is an unfortunate introduction. And again, I really want to thank the funders at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for funding this project. And the participating agencies for this were Fish and Wildlife. They participated every single stage. So we had them review and approve everything that we did in this plan in this final form. But California is very different than the rest of the western U.S. states in that California CDFW doesn't have a statewide strategy for if they get mussels. It's basically water body by water body, and it's the local agencies that are supposed to come up with kind of their response plan and kind of foot the burden of that, at least at this point in time. We also had some other participation from Lake County tribes, Clearlake water purveyors around the lake, and then regional water districts and governments. And we were grateful to Yolo County Conservation, Flood Control Water Conservation District for participating, Sonoma Water, Solano Water District, and the City of Lakeport for participating. And then we had 2 webinars so the public could participate and provide information. Particularly, we really wanted to hear from businesses and organizations that depend on the lake economy, lake ecology, and how a quagga mussel introduction would impact them, their business, their livelihood. So these both are recorded and on our website. The Water Quality Wednesday is in several locations, so if anybody wanted to review those. But we really value the feedback we got from having those two public opportunities. And this was not just important for getting information to put in the plan, but it was really helped us explore the best way to communicate with the public. So if we have an introduction or we have a scare of an introduction, how do we get that message across? What are the avenues that work best? And so these exercises are really helpful for that. We also had an actual work-through scenario exercise. So in June, we had basically working meetings, and we had 6 scenarios, like a quagga mussel was discovered here in this bay. What do you do? And we walked through the step with the state and all of the agencies here about what some of the roles would be and how we would do that response, that verify that detection. And that was a super valuable exercise for us to actually see what are the things that we need to know, what do we not know, and what do we need to address in the plan. And this, our consultants put together an after action report for that exercise, and that is available on our website too, and of course is incorporated into the plan. So if you want any info on any of this, these are several resources. Pretty much everything is on our website at www.nomussels.com. You have to make sure to spell mussels correctly. And then clearlakemusselsprevention.org is our current website for this plan development. However, we are going to be transitioning everything to be under our website at a future time. And anybody, anytime, could message us on Facebook or come to the office at 3rd floor in Lake County Courthouse and talk to me if they have questions about mussels. So right now I'm going to go into a few slides to actually present some of the key points of the plan. And I want to say that I sent hard copies to the council in January. You guys all received that and had good, fun read through it? Yes? Okay. We also, I think I sent you a couple extras so you can have for if any public wants to come read it. The draft version has been online on our website since August. And then we always have hard copies available for checkout or for reading at the Lake County Courthouse at our office. And so this is our plan, and it is an integrated preparedness resilience plan, and it's basically for a rapid response and transition to containment plan. So the goal of this was to figure out the steps of how we go from our current prevention plan with the staff we have under this program, and if we get mussels, what we wanted to prevent was the state coming in and shutting down our lake completely for an unknown amount of time, but that we could pivot into a containment plan so boaters could still come and use the lake and then leave mussel free, and we could still kind of maintain our way of life without a long-term shutdown. So that was the goal, of having a plan to kind of work through that, what those steps are. So that's why it's a rapid response and containment plan. And it really provides the guidance to partners and other entities that really demonstrate how we're going to effectively respond to an introduction or a detection, and then minimize spread, so we're not being a source of mussels through the whole Northern California region. And the plan really emphasizes some of the impacts of mussels, so we talked about these and showed some examples, but these are all the ones that are listed specifically in the plan. So disrupted food chain, so mussels would have a unpredictable effect on our fisheries here. They would compete with fish for food, and we'd probably see a drop in our game fish once we get mussels. Mussels are not a preferred food source for fish, so they're not gonna eat them. There's a couple fish that will eat them, but they're not gonna help our game fishery. You will see a reduction in property values because beaches are gonna be covered with shells. Increased cost to maintain docks and ramps because they will colonize on that infrastructure. We talked about the beaches with hard shells. Obviously, loss of revenue to Lake County communities with reduced lake use. And then increased costs for drinking water systems. So we already have some of the highest rates in the state. There's a study, there is a study that identified that California has the top drinking water rates from Clearlake, and if our drinking water purveyors had to now do maintenance on their pipes and their intakes, scraping off mussels, extra treatment for bacteria and disease that the mussels could introduce, that might just bankrupt some of these systems. There might be fishing, tournament, and boating restrictions. So even if we can, wash every boat that leaves the lake, the state might restrict how many tournaments we have, just so they can manage that traffic better. So that might be overall less visitation to the lake. And then, of course, any boats that sit in the lake would be encrusted with mussels, and that's another cost to individual property owners for having to maintain. Nothing like buying a $70,000 boat and then the prop gets damaged from mussels. So ClearLakeMusselsPrevention.org is the website that was built for this plan development, where we put all the deliverables, all the processes that we did, and all the resources that we used. This was the outline for the plan, all of the sections that we went through. And then now I'm gonna have a few slides that go through some of the recommendations. So we really recommended a rainy day emergency fund that was separate from our prevention program funds to have in case we did get an introduction of mussels. We would be ready with that money to be able to do any response needed. The state does not currently have a rainy day fund for mussel introduction for lakes. They only fund prevention programs. They don't fund responses at this time. So this would include maybe consider changes to the mussel sticker pricing. We really don't want to do that. Anything that adds more cost makes it harder for people to afford, and then also it could deter people from the program entirely, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep people being able to participate in the prevention program and get their boat screened because it's easy and affordable. And then, of course, we can consider county ordinances that can establish special fees for tournaments. We've kind of toyed with that. Again, we don't really want to deter people from coming here and having stuff cost more, but that might be a source of some of this revenue for the rainy day fund. We definitely are looking into developing or putting in some permanent decon stations. And if there's anywhere around the city of Clearlake where you have some lands that you want to put a permanent decon station where we can have either a dip tank for boats or a large container that has decontamination, let me know, because I think a permanent decon station that's staffed would be an easy way for us to switch from a prevention program. We do decontaminate and wash down boats that come into county, but if we had to wash every single boat that left county, if we got mussels, having permanent decon stations is the key to that. Right now, we only have mobile stations, and it would be really hard for us. Some of these tournaments bring in like 1,000 boaters. We possibly can't decon 1,000 boats, with the tools that we have right now. So permanent decon stations, selection of locations, and installation is one of the high recommendations that was a result of this plan development. Having additional signage, so this is more with inspection or with prevention program, and we have a billboard on I-5, and so we're trying to expand that network and get more billboards out there to increase the prevention awareness. Can it go? I push all my buttons, I'm at a loss. Thank you. So there's something else that we had a recommendation. So red ear sunfish are one of the only species that known to feed off of quagga mussels. And so CDFW suggested maybe establishing habitat enhancement programs for red ear sunfish. They're not a native species, so we don't want them to overpopulate, and maybe at one point they don't like mussels and they eat something else, and then there's too many of them. So this is just something that to think about in case we do get mussels as a way to control that population. Next slide, please. And then, of course, they recommended, or the recommendation is for collaboration. So some of those scenario workshops that we did, doing those regularly with regional staff. There's turnover at state agencies, regional agencies, and even local agencies. So keeping up with those scenarios so we're all prepared in case there is an introduction, we're ready to go and everybody's fresh with what those steps are. Next slide, please. And then one of the important recommendations was kind of based off ICS incident command protocols, is doing equipment inventory, seeing where there are decon stations in other places. In case we get an introduction, say before we have time to install our permanent decon stations, if we need to borrow a bunch of decon stations from Berryessa or Mendocino or another part in Northern California, we want to have that already set up and have those relationships built so we can have that fast response. And then, of course, there's some local ordinance recommendations that can be updated. So one of the things is to make non-motorized boats participate in the screening and sticker program. Right now, kayaks are exempt from the program, but kayaks have come a long way since our ordinance was built, so there's a lot of pedals, cubbies, lots of places on a kayak where there could be muscle transportation, so getting stickers, requirements for these non-motorized vessels might be another way to generate some revenue for rainy day fund and also make sure that we're protecting our lake. There's also some other things in the ordinance. We're working on the lake bed or shoreline ordinance updates right now, and so having some requirements in there for property owners that have ramps for either POAs or Airbnbs have signs on their ramps saying that you have to have a sticker and have to be screened before you launch. There's no current requirement for that right now. And then we're also want to get information distributed to people that have home rentals on the lake. So when people come in and they're staying there bringing boats, kayaks, all the same things, they have that information there at the location that they're staying about how important it is to keep mussels out of the lake. Next slide, please. So these are some of the take-home messages from the recommendations from the plan. So Lake County will really lose all our state prevention funding once we get quagga mussels. So the way that the state funds work right now is every year we get about $400,000 from the state to maintain our prevention program, but those are prevention dollar funds. As soon as they find out that we have a mussel in the lake, they cut off those funds. And those prevention funds go from keeping our ramp monitors employed, keeping them out there on the lake, as well as my role, my technician's role, our monitoring role for watching the lake for mussel introductions. A state recommendation, so this came from CDFW, was to encourage more collaboration between Yolo County and Lake County, and actually putting more emphasis on Yolo County, doing a little bit more for mussel prevention, and being involved in response. So because they are the receivers down Cache Creek of Clearlake water, and they have a large water right on Clearlake, it's their responsibility is shared for preparing for an introduction. And that was a state recommendation. And then Lake County will play a lead role in introduction. This is going to be in partnership with CDFW, but it's not like other states in the western U.S. where the state will come in and take charge and make sure that the lake is still able to stay open and install decon stations. That is not the role that CDFW and the state plays in California so far. So it would be a lot of those decisions would be on the local agencies. And then leveraging resources and partnerships with neighboring water bodies. So I have to maintain these relationships with the water bodies and making sure everybody around us doesn't have mussels and that they all have programs and how their programs are doing and they have decon machines that work and do they have staff that's inspecting boats, and if they don't, they need to let us know so we can watch out for boats coming from there. So that's a lot of work to make sure that we're keeping up that vigilance level, and that's something that we have to do. I just want to bring your attention to the dollar sign on the right. So we get revenue from the sticker program, and the way the stickers work are they're basically sold through participating vendors. We have about 30 vendors around the lake, bait and tackle shops, mom and pop hardware stores. Boaters come in, they fill out a form. If the boat needs to be inspected, they'll call a county inspector, and then the vendor can sell a sticker. The sticker is $20, whether it's a boater that lives here in Clearlake or lives or comes from another county, and a portion of those funds the vendor gets to keep. So there's this buy-in. They're making money from the sticker sale. And some of these bait and tackles make a good, 10, 12 grand a year. That's enough for part-time staff during the summer, keeping the lights on. So if we get quagga mussels in the lake and we don't have a sticker prevention program anymore, there's going to be significant loss to some of these local businesses around the lake. In addition, the county gets a portion of that sticker sale, and that's what helps support the rest of the program, because the state grants don't cover the whole program. So we're looking at a loss to the public agencies about $1 million. This is over like a 5-year period is how I did these calculations. So loss to the public sector of the sticker program, about $1 million. The private sector will lose about $500,000. And I will say that of that $500,000, $800,000 of that is generated by visitors. That's both of them, sorry. The $1.5 million, the public and private sector, $800,000 is generated just by visitors for over a 5-year period. And then our grant funding every year, or over the 5 years, is averaged about $1.25 million. So those are funds that come from outside the county, come into the county. Our ramp monitors, they live here, they spend that money. All that money is coming here for us to maintain that program. And then we can't put a price on the ecosystem loss. So what would it cost for us if all of our beaches had shells and we couldn't enjoy, the lake as we know it today? Next slide, please. So some of my next steps, I took this plan to the Board of Supervisors in October and was instructed to get city and tribal review and input. And so that is my step right now with you today. And to get feedback, any comments, any of your concerns, I want to make sure that they're captured in this plan and that you are in full understanding of what this plan entails and next steps if we do get an introduction of mussels. And then we do have a grant for U.S. Fish Wildlife Service federal funds again in April. And I am going to apply for the maximum amount of that grant and start getting ready on those decontamination stations. And also if there's anything else that is needed from your feedback today, I want to make sure I'm incorporating that as I go forward and get these grants. And then within 6 months, we are going to consolidate the website that was made for the plan development into our website. I don't like having like 10 websites for the same thing. And then we're hoping to get an adoption from the Board of Supervisors in June and July. And what that'll mean is, let's say we do get quagga mussels and the state wants to come in and take charge. We say, hey, we have a plan, you guys approved it. Let us take some control of our local resource here and have a say in what goes on. We want to keep our lake open and we have the steps outlined so we can maintain our way of life, but also protect the region from quagga mussels. Next slide. I think it's just, yep. So right now I will take any questions and my contact information is on the screen. You can email, you can call me. Again, go on Facebook if you want to send a message or send us a picture of something on the lake if you're not sure what it is. And with that, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Overton.
Well, one, thank you. This woman is the god of the waters. I feel that way. She is.
Goddess.
You're the goddess of our waters. She is wonderful, and you've done a wonderful job on putting all of this together. So
Thank
I'm
you.
very appreciative. One of the things I'm looking at, since this is could be a tourist thing, and I know we have our TOT taxes, that things, it's like, I think maybe that might be something that the tourist committee might want to look at to say, is there any type of funding that they can maybe set aside for an emergency situation? Because that seems to be like one of our problems for funding, is looking at what are we going to do for emergencies if something happens. So maybe that's, since it does have to do with tourists, maybe that is something you guys might want to talk about at your meeting. So I'm throwing it out here because I got some of them that sit on that meeting. So suggestion. So, but I really think you've done a fabulous job, and I really appreciate all your hard work. So
Thank you, Councilmember Overton.
I have two questions for you, and you may have already mentioned it, but in terms of proximity, what bodies of water around Clearlake have mussels in it right now?
So right now, there are none in Northern California.
Okay.
There is a reservoir, San Justo Reservoir, which has zebra mussels, and that's in Central California. And that actually has been totally closed off. So it's shut down. Nobody can get in or out or use that water body because there's zebra mussels. I think it's a drinking water reservoir. I think there's some filtration for some drinking water on it, but it's not used for any recreation. That is the closest water body to us. And the next closest water body, again, is like 7 hours away, so I think down in Riverside County. The issue with the ones in Southern California is a lot of those water bodies are connected, State Water Project, canals and things. So there's a large connected network of water bodies, and some of them have a definitive mussel detection and are considered infested. And then there's ones that are connected that don't, which means the monitoring agencies have not found anything, but they're connected aquatically. What we do with our quagga mussel monitors is any of those that are connected from any of those counties down there, that's red alert. And we look very carefully at those boats. We ask the boaters a lot of questions. One thing I didn't touch on in this, but we are transitioning to a digital system as part of the Colorado State Parks watercraft inspection database. So all the participating western states in this database, particularly ones that have infested water bodies, will track when a boat comes in and leaves, and we have that database. So if we see a boater on the ramp, we type in their CF number, and it can tell us right away where that boat was. Some boats or some lakes aren't on that, and a lot of them are in the northern region that don't have mussels, but the ones that are infested are on there. So we can tell right away if someone's been in an infested water body through that system. And so we're transitioning to that, and it'll really help us track these boats and see where people are coming from.
Wonderful. Well, you're doing amazing work. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. You said you had 2 questions. You only gave me one?
Yeah, but.
Did I make you forget the second one?
Yeah, the second one was more, you already answered it,
Okay.
but for the decontamination
Okay.
facilities and the stations, you think that you'll be able to get the grant for that and that will fund it 100%? Or would you need input from city and county?
So the process for that is, this plan just covered the site selection. So we want to pick locations that are easy for people when they're coming into county or leaving county to stop at. Then we have to plan, is there access to facilities? Because when you have a decon station, you have to have sewage, because you have to have water treatment, you have to have a water source, you have to have enough space for there to be parking lot. Boats take up a lot of space. You guys know that. Redbud Park can get filled up pretty quickly, even though it has a huge parking lot. So we need enough space. We'll probably have to do some land acquisition grants once we get designs for these areas. So there's multiple steps. It's not going to be completed in one grant.
Gotcha. All right. Oh, we have a question?
Well, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One, love trying to keep local control, so thank you for that. On the decon stations, I definitely think we'd be interested in talking about location at Redbud Park. I think there's a number of options there. And then also believe the short-term rental education is a really smart move. At this point, I think the city is the only jurisdiction in the county that registers short-term rentals. And so we would have a pretty easy process to be able to share that information with folks who are renting. Just wanted to share that with you.
So is that something like I provide either hard copy materials or digital copy materials, and that gets out to them?
Yep.
Ooh, okay. Great.
Councilmember Purdock.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm grateful you're going after the short-term rentals. Is there any material that could be shared, say, in a tax mailer for all the property owners that would get this information out? There's so many private boat ramps around the lake, and I just see that as a real weak spot.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. What we do at Lakebed Management currently is, because we have a program where all the shoreline properties have to pay a lease, we do an annual mailer to them because we have to put in there, oh, you're going to get a bill soon for your lakebed lease. And then I always write a letter every year, have for about 5 or 6 years. I talk about cyanobacteria, water quality, aquatic plants, and I always have a big section there about quagga mussels. I probably this year, because this plan will be out, I'll probably do a flyer information just for mussels. So that's one way that we get all the properties that are on the lake. The problem with that is not everybody that lives on that unit in the lake is getting that letter. So I have to, that is a double step then, is sending it to the property owner and then the parcel address. But I'm going to write that down because that's a great idea, and I'll make sure that this year when we're budgeting for that lakebed letter, as part of this plan outreach, we'll include that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I know of neighbors that allow their boat ramp to be used by people who don't touch the lake.
Oh, where's that address?
Not address, just friends.
Place, friends, okay.
Friends and neighbors.
You tell them to watch their boats.
That's why I suggested
Yes, thank you.
a property tax, so people who aren't necessarily touching the lake would also
Right.
be made aware. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again so much for coming out.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, moving on to public comment. This is the time for any member of the public to address the city council on any matter that is not on the agenda, that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the city, the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. If you're participating via Zoom, you can leave a comment in the tool on your Zoom bar. Are there any comments here in the chamber? Please come forward. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, any comments come through on Zoom? There is.
One moment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a comment here? Why don't you come forward, and please state your name and city of residence.
Yeah, hi. My name is Liza Chavez, and I am resident of Clearlake for the past almost 18 years, although I work in San Francisco, so a lot of the times I stay mainly in San Francisco and I come here on the weekend. I own a house not far from here, but I'm just going to read what I wrote. I was going to send it to somebody in your group, but I didn't get the real email, so this is regarding the animal services in Clearlake. And basically, and I hope this letter is not going to be, offending anyone. But currently, Clearlake relies on a nonprofit organization, which I believe they call the North-Based Animal Services, and act as a third-party service for the animal services on animal control. However, I have personally experienced multiple instances where the response has been very inadequate, especially when it comes to addressing cases of animal neglect and abuse. Specifically, when I report dogs being neglected without proper food, water, or care, although I'm directed to contact the nonprofit organization. I went to the nonprofit organization like over a year ago to talk to the person who's in charge of that organization, which is Mr. Mark Scott. I explained the situation about this backyard breeding of Buster Terrier dogs being very neglected with no food, no water. I requested to help me to maybe retrieve those animals, having the mother or spayed or neuter vaccinated. I was willing to pay for it, but they've never done anything about it. It's over almost 2 years now. It's in constant, it's really filthy where they live, full of garbage behind. I called code enforcement, I called the police. I actually asked to somebody who is in charge, partially of that nonprofit, or they communicate. They're like a bridge between the animal services and the police. I talked personally, on the phone with the lieutenant, Peterson, I believe his name, and I requested to help me with the animals. Nobody wants to do anything. There is so much apathy about the animal welfare, the animal care. It's so disheartening for me to see the inaction, totally inaction about animals. And I don't understand what is the issue, why it cannot be resolved, the problem. The North Bay Animal Services, I inquire a lot of organizations in the Sonoma County area to see why that organization is servicing other counties, but they're not doing what they're supposed to do, which is help or even educate the public about animal services or animal care. They're not doing anything. There's so many animals in Clear Lake running free, abandoned, cats and dogs, animals on the highway. There's nobody to call. I see dead animals, they can sit there for weeks. That's not a way of a society that has to live that way. There has to be some concern from the people in Clear Lake. Somebody has to do something and take the initiative, perhaps to get the people in the city, get them together, neighborhood by neighborhood, canvass people, to do a canvassing to support the animal welfare.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So we have a 3-minute limit. Thank you for making us aware.
That's the issue that I came today to talk about it, besides the police department, the animal services, and of course the code enforcement. Somebody has to do that, and somebody needs to help on this, especially that I see every day. I give them addresses, I give them pictures, and nothing has been done.
All right.
So I hope I can, come up with a resolution and do something about this issue with the animals.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Any other comments here in the chamber? All right, Madam Clerk, anything on Zoom?
There are no comments on the Zoom related to public comment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we'll move forward to item H, the consent agenda. Does any council member want to pull something from the consent agenda? Any member of the public? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion from Councilmember Kramer, a second from Councilmember Slutin. Please vote in your portal.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 10, consideration or his or her designee to act on its behalf to engage government-to-government tribal consultation.
This one. So at the suggestion of our consultant in consultation with her, with Lisa, in terms of delegation of authority when it comes to tribal consultation. And so while we're working on those tribal consultation guidelines, with consultation. And because of limited staff, it made sense for the city manager to be that person. It also says that it could be the city manager or his designee, if that's the case. In consultation, and has done so before. We just run into some issues there and consult on not just tribal issues, but really anything without agendizing a meeting. And so if the mayor or one or two council members wanted to participate in that, it really made sense between myself and our somebody while those guidelines are being worked in that his experience. And again, we don't have an assistant city manager or other level persons to fill that role. And if there's any questions or comments about that, I'm happy to answer them. But it seemed to make sense and was a good practice moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions from the council? Councilmember Slutin.
We received today a letter from the coordination, and that states that they don't want to deal with our city manager, basically. Can we ask the same thing of them, that we don't want to?
I mean, you could ask, certainly. It's kind of like them asking you who you choose. I think it's your discretion. Likewise, it would be their discretion. But if there's a certain person you wanted to, you can make that suggestion. I don't know that it would be answered.
I know.
But yeah. One other comment I want to make is clearly there's certain items that cannot be delegated from the city council project. That is not what's happening here with this action.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public?
There is one statement on Zoom. The Coordination of Northern California appreciates the opportunity to present the following written comments on items for its March 7th, 2024 regular meeting. On this item, consideration of Resolution 2024-10, which designates the city manager or his/her designee with California Native American tribes as part of government-to-government tribal consultation. Federal law, tribal consultation is government-to-government consultation and a respectful effort to e.g. Pub Res Code and Section 210, Section 653, 52.4. While governmental staff may assist decision makers with alternatives, actual decisions must be made by the government's respected officials. And that ends the comment.
Clarify, Mr. Jones, the decisions are still being made by the city council. Wonderful.
Which means that we're not, what that letter says, we're not impacting that still. So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion if we're done talking about it.
Any other comments from the council? Overton?
Really clarify. So during the consultation,
give me a process of as you're sitting in decision that needs to be made, it comes back to the council, or are we giving him? And what kind of decisions are we giving permission for you to make if that's what it is?
It kind of depends on the situation. I mean, normally speaking, I don't attend to most of the tribal consultation. That gather information, share information on the project that we're talking about, and then bring facts that have been presented, look at the other information that's been provided. Obviously, you know, a big part looking at the, you know, archaeologist report, that type of thing. And then mitigation measures that we think are appropriate, which are then presented to the Planning Commission, and really the council only sees those if it comes back on appeal, or, you know, so that's kind of how the process works. I mean, consultation, by its very definition, is, you know, share. There could be some decisions made at the table, like, you know, we expect you to do this. We'll consider that, and that would either be worked into a mitigation measure or not.
Okay,
If that helps explain it.
yes, that does. Thank you very much.
Final approval of mitigation. Planning Commission,
Planning
and then
Commission.
eventually to, it has to come to some body, governmental agency.
I think that's
Just wanted to make sure, because it sounded like you thought you guys were going to be making like all these decisions, and I wanted to make sure that.
I do want to point out that the gentleman on Zoom has put copy and paste from the letter that was sent to you today, so I guess it's your discretion. Or
Well,
refer to the letters.
I believe all council members have received that letter already, so we've had a chance to review it. So thank you, City Manager Flora. Any other comments from the council? Hearing none?
2024-10, and read by title only, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Clearlake delegating the city manager or his for tribal consultation.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Councilmember Kramer, a second from Council.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Moving on to item 11, consideration of fiscal year 2025 community project funding request to Congressman Thompson. City Manager Flora.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. So it is that time of year again. We received information from Congressman Thompson about community project funding requests, which are due the 15th of this month. So just a quick rehash, what's considered the 2023 funding cycle, which is almost 2 years ago now. The city received $2 million for the Burns Valley Sports Complex. After the staff report was drafted, the city received notice that the congressman was able to allocate an additional just over $4.1 million for the Burns Valley Sports Complex in the past year's funding cycle. And that's been delayed because, you know, Congress hadn't passed a budget until, I guess, maybe it's almost through this week. But the congressman is confident enough about this that he let all of us know that was happening. So anyway, moving forward with the requests for this year. So staff didn't have a specific recommendation, and I think there's a number of things that the council should consider. The last couple of years we've put sort of all of our, marbles into trying to get additional funding for the sports complex. As you know, the delays that we've suffered have pushed the cost of that up, so there's still a shortfall. Initially, I'd come into this expecting that, the congressman probably was looking for other projects. However, in talking to his staff just yesterday, I shared the concern, as the congressman feel like that we've kind of, gotten our due for the last couple of years. And for context, he's only allowed to ask for $15 million a year for his whole district. And so, he's treated us quite well. The answer I received was, don't shoot low. Congressman Thompson thinks that the city of Clearlake has, I guess, not gotten what it deserved over the years. And so don't be afraid to ask for what you want. So you could consider asking for more money for that project. And I think we have a few other ideas, but one thing that I wanted to start with is a request that kind of initially came up through the Blue Ribbon Committee, and so that there's a number of sort of algae mitigation projects that they considered, and then due to kind of a drawback of state funding, they haven't been able to move forward with too many of those. I think they are moving forward with the oxygenation project in the Clearlake Keys over in Clearlake Oaks. But we had been approached by the committee and some consultants about a couple of other options. I think you're all familiar with the LG Sonic option, which kind of came through this process as well, and is currently being considered by the county for funding. And this is an algae harvesting concept. It kind of been put on hold, but it sounds like the congressman's office may be interested in considering this. And it's a little different than what you may have pictured from years past related to algae harvesting. And talking to some of the council members about it, I thought it's probably best just to have the expert give a little overview for the council on this project, have you ask a few questions now. We don't have to solve all the technical problems today. We need to decide whether you think that this is something that you would like to move forward with. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan Levy, if that's okay, and he's going to, I think, share maybe a short video and then present a little information and then address questions. But I guess before we get into that, one last thing I want to say is I think that while we've done this the past couple of years, the council doesn't need to commit to one specific project. I think, and I confirmed this with the staff, if you would like to submit a few sort of priority projects, that's fine, and then the congressman can pick the ones that he thinks might be most suitable for being approved. So with that, I would like to turn over to Dan, and he can give us an overview. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. Can everybody see me or hear me on the phone through Zoom?
Yes, we can see you.
Perfect. If you have a couple of minutes, I do have a couple of slides I'd like to show, if that's okay.
Oh, please, absolutely.
All right. Let me know when you can see the slide.
We can see it.
Okay. All right. What I wanted to do is just provide a little bit of background for those that might not know our company, the technology, and what we believe to be some good next steps for Clearlake. I'll go through this pretty quickly. AECOM is a Fortune 500 company. We do about $11 billion a year, and we're the only firm of this size that have been invested for the last 7 years in developing technology to address this global issue. We started this project in Florida and worked around the country. These are just areas we'll be doing work and have done work. The technology itself as Alan pointed out, is essentially harvesting intact algae cells, the microscopic algae that's in the water. And if I can draw your attention to this jar that says lake water, that's essentially, in this case, full of algae. The process that we use clarifies that. It returns clean water back, which is the center jar, and returns and captures the algae slurry, which is in the jar to your right, and that's essentially what we have here down in this picture. If you can see the cursor, and then goes through a dewatering process that turns it into a biosolid. And it's important for several reasons, but by doing this, we're able to take the nutrients that feed the algae out of the water, and we can return clean water back, which provides benefit, and we can valorize the algae biomass to other products. Case in point, right now algae is being used in a lot of footwear. It's being used in sustainable agriculture, and our work with the Department of Energy and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is turning it into biocrude. Just to give everybody a little bit of a picture of how this system has worked, I had a couple of photos or a little video here. This is a project we did up in Cincinnati. This was taking algae from the water and turning it into crude oil in the same day. We had representatives from the Department of Energy, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife, the governor, the first lady of the state. This is an algae biomass that comes out through the harvester. You can kind of see some of the demonstrations that we do. This garners a lot of media attention because of its innovation and its ability to rapidly take out nutrients by taking out the algae. So these are groundbreaking for that part. We have finished a project in Florida, which you're looking at the screen now, is over by the Kennedy Space Center in the Intercoastal Waterway of Florida, where we're putting our harvesters now on barges to access large volumes of water. So we're able to work in both fresh and saltwater areas. That lady in the pink is Senator Debbie Beefield for the state of Florida, who's in charge of the appropriations. But as you look through this, you can kind of get a sense of the activity, the amount of interest from the public, from the scientific community that follow us and look through this. I think this provides a good interaction, good public outreach to explain how the process works, and that's the clean water coming out. This is the hydrothermal liquefaction process. This is where we, at Trevor had it, where we actually use heat and pressure to take the carbon bit in the algae. An algae cell itself has about 70% carbon, and we take those carbon bits, very similar to what's done in nature, and we do that above ground in about 30 minutes to create a crude oil. So there's a lot of versatility that we can provide with the harvesting system. We have different sizes that can go on platforms, that can go on land, small water bodies, large water bodies, quite versatile, and that's some of the algae that would come out of our system. This is the crude oil. And I believe we have one more shot as we end this video of showing the clear water that comes out of our system. One of the things that we're doing today is working on Lake Okeechobee. This has been a problem for the state of Florida because not only does it hold water, but it releases it to both the Gulf of Mexico and to the Atlantic Ocean. Here's a project that we've developed where we're working with a marina very similar to what we'll be testing at Clearlake for the Blue Ribbon Committee, but we'll have harvesters, and this is showing through computer modeling over a 1-year period on how the discharge water will mix and essentially create a larger plume along the lake. Reason why I'm showing this one, this is in Southampton, Long Island. This is a smaller lake, but this lake we were able to get an appropriation. We were able to get a federal appropriation for $5 million and a local match of 5.3 to provide $10 million of funding. And what we'll be building in a very astute residential neighborhood is a harvesting system. I wanted to show the graphics of what this would look like and what we're proposing for Clearlake. Something of this where you have a lot of human interaction that can be part of this. Kiosks put up in the front. It's an attractive system for considering that we'll be removing algae cells from the project. And the footprints are relatively small. We're doing it in a very green manner with forest pavers, very decorative vines that grow on the side to provide a little softer approach to how we're starting to clean up in the future. For Clearlake, for the Blue Ribbon Committee, this was our demonstration project. We were going to create a clean zone inside this area. So residents and regulatory agencies will have the ability to interact with their discharge water to kind of see how that would work. The intent for the ask to Congressman Thompson's office would be very similar to what was done in New York, and that would be to ask for additional federal support that would allow a more permanent structure to be placed here, to allow this to be really the centerpiece for the state of California, and to then use that as an opportunity to secure additional funding. So with that, I will stop sharing the screen and turn it over for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. Vice Mayor Overton.
So I guess my question is exactly where, if we did this, where would it be put at? It's going to be on our end of the lake somewhere, you know?
Yeah, the proposal is, we'd have a lot of details to work out if we got the
I
money,
understand
but to
that,
put it at Redbud Park.
Okay, that's kind of what I was hoping that.
About changing this into products that could be used in agriculture or biocrude, I assume to be made into a diesel or a gasoline product. Is there revenue to this project coming out to that? That's one question.
It's still a breakthrough project. We're looking at finding a way that we can convert, but we're not harvesting enough algae at this point yet. But it does open up the opportunity for the Department of Energy money, because we can create clean energy from the ability aspect of it. We've done 2 projects with the Army Corps of Engineers, New York and Florida, and we'll be doing others this year where we'll be continuing to advance the technology to go to scale. But as of today, there's no scaled plants in our country. Trying to do is to get there. So yes, we do have a novel approach, and we have technology to test them at Clearlake, which we'll be doing when the Blue Ribbon Committee provides the funding. But we want to take it a step further and make it a more permanent structure at Clearlake.
Okay. Bill, now what do you do with that cake?
Working with agricultural uses, we finished a project last year with the EP. Displace about 50% of the commercial fertilizer. We also see a benefit with converting it not just to crude oil, but we can crude it for Clearlake. The vision would be that we would use it on site. We would use it to generate system running.
Oh, so you would return it back and use it right there in the system?
Correct. That would be the vision. Correct.
Okay, so, the last question.
Definitely an odor with harmful algal blooms, and we try to be ahead of the game so we're not waiting for the algae to die. Our vision is not to take up dead algae mats, but to harvest the potential of cyanotoxins and the threat of aerosolization of those toxins. We have outfitted our harvesters with sealed containers. That way we can keep a negative pressure. They can have
Deodorize it, basically.
Right. And the odor. We were doing it more. But yes, that also addresses the odor issue.
Thank you.
Councilmember Slutin.
Interesting program. How, when starting something, we're trying to fix something or we're creating another problem down the line. I mean, will there be enough nutrients for the bass fishing?
Absolutely. And what we look at, and this is novel, so we've been 7 years with this project. Either by the federal government or state governments throughout the country. We've won seven awards on the technology because of its innovation. Of phosphorus in the water to a healthier level. More algae growth. We would not be reducing or eliminating that level. We would be Clearlake. I think the best benefit here would be to see the effluent, which is crystal clear, come out, and that water, by our process, benefits to the shoreline. So we can then start having more healthier plant growth along the shoreline. Keeping the nutrients in the sediments and not allowing them to come out. So the process is really, I think, going to be a game changer in how harmful algal bloom.
Well, this is exciting to see. So just operationally, techniques, I guess you could say, in your presentation, is there any that would push the algae into the intake, or do you just, does it work solely on what comes by the intake?
You can visualize that jar of dirty water. We essentially have sensors. We set the intake really to 2 foot, and it'll depend on different seasons within Clearlake. But from what we have seen and from the data we have evaluated, there is a rich amount of algae throughout Clearlake. As dead algae, and again, that we want to prevent that. We really don't, that doesn't do much. That's easy, you can scrape that up. What we're looking for is itself, and mixture, and we should be able to amply get out a very rich algae intake on that.
Thank you.
What is the area of the entire lake, correct?
Correct. This is one structure built, the pipelines put in place, the way we have set our harvesters up, we now have the ability to run these on an iPhone. Collection system that takes the algae biomass out, but we do have the ability to train local staff to run these, or to, if that's something of interest, or we can run them on our own. But I think here, the intent would be if we could build a more permanent structure, we can then get more regulatory agencies, more political leaders, the governor, to come out and see what can be done on these problematic water bodies. When we have an abundance of nutrients, we now have a path forward where we can not only clean the water, but we can also create a valuable product. So what was once considered wet waste is now a potential feedstock for clean energy or sustainable agriculture. So I think these things are really where we want to lean into the future. And Clearlake, because of the conditions in the lake, make this an ideal spot to conduct this kind of a showcase project.
So I guess maybe a bit more specific with Redbud and Clearlake. So the impact in water quality would be mostly felt downstream. So between Redbud and to Cache Creek, nothing to the west of that, correct?
Well, yeah, it's going to be, and that's kind of why we wanted that curtain, why we wanted that particular area, so we can make a clean zone within the lake. The harvesters, the land-based ones are modular, so they could be stacked, do 1 million. Essentially, at the end of the month, we would be discharging highly oxygenated water into Clearlake and direct that discharge. But eventually, over time, we will have a clean zone.
Councilmember Kramer.
Yes, that sounds like a great project. And we're showcasing this for the rest of the world, it sounds like, or at least the rest of California. So who's going to foot the bill? Are you expecting Clearlake?
Yeah, we actually have money coming in from the Blue River. Vetted our project and committed to providing $1.2 million test. We would like to ask the congressman to provide federal support to make a more permanent structure at this site, like $10.3 million. And I think that was a 60-acre lake, and you have a 45,000-acre lake.
Yeah.
So if we can project, I believe we can then use that to leverage and obtain not just a Clearlake, but it's important to our country that we have a technology available, or technology a ideal spot for showcasing this.
I don't disagree with that. Assuming what's the cost of this, by the way, to put the more stacked structure that does the, how many gallons a day were you saying?
Day system there for a temporary period. We would like to ask the congressman to provide that match. So it'd be close to, it'll be under 5 million, it'd be 4.8 would be the max. And that will give us the flexibility and how it would blend into the system and even provide some interaction with the general public. So they'll give us a little bit more flexibility.
Oh, I'm still not sure I heard how much it would cost the city.
It would be
To the congressman.
correct.
With nothing to the city?
Nothing to the city.
We just provide the land.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Slutin.
Have you touched base with them, or?
No, we haven't. When we did the initial pilot test, we thought that the city would be the best place for us to do the demonstration here. For us, it made logical sense to say, why don't we just extend that demonstration and it's there on a more permanent basis.
I think you need to get approval from the Yolo County Flood Control and Conservation.
Well, some of it's their water, but we're also not taking their water, we're just borrowing it and cleaning it, but.
Because, yes, this is a side stream process. We bring 1 million gallons in and we put 1 million gallons back. The only thing we're taking out is the algae.
Wouldn't anticipate that we would need fish and game permits for the way this is set up, but yeah, I mean, that's.
In terms of timeline, if we did get this funding, how long until we could actually deploy something like this?
I mean, once we had authorization or notification that the funding was available, I mean, how it would be, built, it doesn't exist, and, any anticipation on the sort of time to be operating?
Well, yeah, I believe the way the Congress works, the funding and 2024, but assuming they're back on schedule, funding should be in 2025, and then would go through the permitting process. And during that time, we can get we're probably in about a year after we receive the funding to have something.
Our county is thinking proactively, and they're trying to pass in the lake, especially around our area. If that were to pass, would that impact the operations of your unit?
We can take our intake and move that away from the area, and there might be some synergies on our effluent, the clean water coming out. The sonic buoys might be able to prevent algae from going into the clean lake, so we can figure that out. I think there might be some synergies there.
Any other questions?
Algae from the lake, it just essentially is supposed to keep it from clumping together. I have to share some frustration. I mean, at the end of the day, really, this should be a project that the county's taking on. Really seen that support from the board to do this type of stuff and try some different for this, but I mean, even the sonic buoy thing is kind of stalled out because the board direction was, go find a bunch of grants to cover this, and the county isn't willing to actually invest some of the money that they have into. That's why, I think the council needs to understand that, if we want to see some leadership.
Thank you, City Manager.
So curiosity, what are you asking us for this project?
Well, I mean, we need to talk about other projects too, but I mean, at some point we need to know, is this something you like enough to submit to Congressman Thompson and ask him to give us $5 million?
Yeah, okay. And then this might be something that our supervisor thing than the buoys, because I know the buoys are just basically pushing the algae down, which creates more the next year. So this might be a more feasible thing to me. It's better than just pushing it down to the bottom. Might be something to consider instead of going the buoy way, maybe coming in and maybe helping support something like. I know that.
Maybe.
I know that. I'm just saying, that's why I said it, is that might be something that we might want to look at instead of,
I think it's a big enough lake, and, a lot of this technology has been tried in other areas, smaller water bodies and whatnot, but we need to be trying right now.
How clean is that water that comes out of it? I mean, could you,
If you saw the video, it's relatively crystal clear. You can see through it. We would not do it for this lake, but we can add additional treatment to it and turn it to drinking water. But yeah, finding the water and taking the algae out.
so it would be,
The benefits and the problem that we had with algae, well, our planet, when you get an abundance of it, it blocks out the photosynthesis, or photosynthesizes, blocks out the sunlight problems, and it then becomes a dominant species in the water, and that's what we're seeing. So by taking the nutrients out and reducing that food source and providing the lake, this is kind of like a kickstart. We're trying to work with nature, not against it. And that was the whole philosophy on why we passionate about it, because it really does works with, with the water body itself.
and if you have an algae bloom that, they can't always treat them properly or things, so this would be a solution for them too.
Councilmember Krim?
Yes, it brings up, you said obviously you had a 60-acre lake, and we have 48,000 acres. Have you looked at any other locations? Or?
On Clearlake, because of where you're positioned, where the city is positioned, it really does take the blunt of all the algae. It seems to flow down to that lower arm, and I think having the harvesters there would be the best position. Job pointed out that the lake is big. It can go anywhere, but I think here, visibility-wise, because this is new and novel, we really want to provide that platform and say we've, just by circumstance of where the city is and how you're moving forward, we're going to have out at your city. And it'll be very visible because you'll see the clean water going right back into the lake, and then over time plays well to the residents, it plays well for our nation, and especially for the state of California.
Oh, I'd love to help the nation and the state of California, but I'd like to help our lake first. But,
and I think if
we're going to be there, we're going to help you sell all. I'm sorry, I just had to say that.
No, it's fine. I completely understand that.
To basically say we'd like to go for 5 million from the Congress, and then $1 million of that's going to go towards this project. Is that, or?
No, this counts on 1.2 million that was allocated by the Blue Ribbon Committee. We would ask the congressman for 5 million. And
For the
then
Blue Ribbon Committee?
Huh?
For the Blue Ribbon Committee?
No,
or
we would
for-
be
through
asking it
this?
to come to us, and
Okay.
then we would construct this. As I understand, the equipment would then essentially be owned by us, and the funding available, and then beyond that, there would have to, or, in that time, there would have to be some type of operating plan over the long term if it was successful,
But we're not wanting to take away from our recreation project for this.
No.
Okay,
No.
I just want to make sure. So I just want to make sure that we're not taking away from something else, so, because to me.
Well, I mean, the
too
way
many
this
things
process
going and then
works,
nothing
we
works,
don't know what Congress Congress, what the congressman might like to see. What I would recommend, I mean, if you from submitting, maybe 3 different projects that the council likes, and then, it's in the congressman's hands and the subcommittee's hands on which one they decide.
I don't want to.
Anyway.
I don't want to take away from our recreation, because, I mean, that's, to me, is we start getting too many things going and then nothing really gets completed. And we so I don't want to, like, take away from one project. But I don't love this project, of course. I've been on the algae thing forever. So I love this project, but I just don't want to take away from another. I don't want to take away from our recreation. So, I mean, I'm okay with this as long as we're not taking away from our recreation.
We're not the only ones that are putting in, by the way. The county's also submitted, 5 or so projects for the same thing.
What other projects, I'm sorry.
You'd have to,
You want to put on?
Yeah.
Well, the mayor and I did a little brainstorming over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I think generally, just like road projects, aren't something that are funded through this process. Are not, yeah. So again, we could ask for more money for the sports complex project. Other really high recommend, like, oh, we want to create a new nature preserve or something that, we haven't started, like we have. But like, for example, with the airport redevelopment project, what we have worked into that, as you know, is kind of a public market and some we envision as being at least partially like a business and other small folks. Maybe that's something that the subcommittee would like. Improvements that could be made at Redbud Park. We know from the drought that our boat ramps need to be extended.
I mean, I'm just saying is there's our.
It's it's possible. I mean, I don't think.
In the renovation, I'm talking the finishing of the outside and stuff like that. So.
Okay, well, I mean, you can ask for anything you want.
Highlands Park is another possibility.
That's the one I was thinking. And is there some possibility of any park quake facilities? Is there something that we can do over there that might be a project that could be funded?
Again, yes, there are things we can do. We have a few things that we can focus on there, but, we have a whole lot of projects that we're trying to push forward, and I think that focusing on a few of the ones that we're really leaning into probably makes the most sense.
So focusing on the things that we kind of already have going, the recreation center,
you know-
the airport property facility, and then this. To me,
Well, I
those
mean,
are-
one other a little smaller thing is, that we kind of have in the works, but we're, again, a little stalled out on is, redoing the skate park. Supervisor Sabatier has brought a lot of money to that, but it's still a little short. And then, because of the splash pad and other things, we've had a number of requests for like bathroom facilities over on that side of the park. So you might be able to. I mean, we've been spoiled a little bit with these big requests. When he gets to ask for $15 million and we're getting a big chunk of that, he has a big district. So, if it's something he really likes, obviously he's able to pull it off for us. But, I think this year the other 2 projects besides our $4.1 million that was funded was just under $1 million project. And a $500,000 project. So, they're not all $4 or $5 million like we've been used to.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So this project was recommended by Congressman Thompson? No.
No, they did talk to the congressman's staff about it and explain it to them, and there is some interest there, but, we aren't really going to know until we submit.
is this, I mean, Cecilia always was interested in the Blue Ribbon Committee and stuff like that. Does she have any influence on this?
Well, you know, that's a big part of the process, so that would be one thing she could help with. I mean, I'm not expecting, you know, previously we've spent a lot of time getting letters of support, and if she would be willing to do that, that would be wonderful.
Deliberation will try to focus this very broad conversation. So anyone in the chamber would like to speak, please come forward.
My name for the last 13 years. I am originally from Berkeley. I haven't heard any mention of other type of environmental impacts of even a small scale operation like this. Is it for example, I'm an engineer, sorry. Is it a passive system or is it an active system? Does it have active components, in which case could that generate sound pollution in the community or in the locale around, or other environmental concerns which haven't been mentioned? That's my question.
Thank you. Mr. Levy, can you touch on that? Any other sound impacts, and to his first question, is this an active or a passive system?
An excellent question. Yes, this is an active system. We put in a lot of effort to keep the sound down. It'll essentially be like a pool pump that we'll have, and we containerized it. And if you saw the renderings we did for Southampton, that's going in a residential neighborhood next to the promenade of the park. So this is not really going to be a detriment. It's going to be an asset. The village of Southampton wants to showcase this, and they want kiosks put up, etc. They're very proud of what they're doing to clean the lake up, and I think the residents will find that same benefit here. So yes, it is a active system. We use air to generate the separation process. We use a compressed air system, so the moving parts are quite minimal, and the noise would be essentially similar to a pool pump.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Please state your name and city of residence.
Bruno Sabatier, City of Clearlake. I think we have to try something, and when I brought LG Sonic to the Board of Supervisors, and I've spoken to the council about it, I will not shy away from saying it's possible that it won't work. We are looking for innovative solutions to a problem we have yet to solve. There have been some attempts, and nothing has shown that this is the kind of money we want to spend to continue attempting these things, because it just doesn't show the results we're looking for. I think we need to look at one project only, because yes, it's a big lake. Let's, just like we stopped doing the LG Sonic in the Clear Lake Oaks area to let them do the oxygenation, rather than spending twice the amount of dollars for two projects, where maybe one project would be able to provide the results we're looking for. Like it was said, it's a big lake. We can do LG Sonic somewhere else, or LG Sonic here, and do the harvester here or somewhere else. Because we want to know what the result of the actual project itself is, or else how do we know which one to replicate when we're trying to figure out which pilot project actually worked? So I'm willing to help the city support this, what the city needs in order to get our businesses and our hotels to stop getting people to cancel their reservations and go home. We need to stop this status quo that we have. I think all of these ideas have their own type of flaws. LG Sonic, the sonar could only go so far, so we have to have a whole lot of different tiny devices all around the lake and hope that no boaters are going to crash into them and figure out how do we solve that situation. For here, I was hearing some numbers and I was just doing some quick calculations. Our lake is about 1.1 million acre feet. We're looking at potentially treating 500 acre feet a month. How much does that actually change the overall area of just the area of this arm? Until we try it, there's no way of really knowing. So I support you guys pushing this forward. Yes, it has the potential for the Board of Supervisors to say, hey, the city's pushing for that project, so let's not support another project. I don't agree with that. I think that if we get our LG Sonic going, the city has the chance to say, hey, maybe we can cancel this project or continue. That's a decision you get to make. There's always the possibility that we need things today, and whatever we asked Congressman Thompson, we can cancel and say, never mind, we already got what we needed. But I think we need to have the conversation about what's possible and what we need to do, and not which one we're going to do, because we have to push all of these things forward and then eventually decide which one we're going to end up with. So I'm happy to support this if this is what ends up happening. I'm happy to continue to push the LG Sonic and see where we go. I am reaching out and trying to obtain grants for that, just like the Board of Supervisors requested that I do. But I think that as long as we have multiple agencies attempting to solve this problem, I think we're going to solve it. If it relies on the city of Clearlake or if it relies solely on the county, we're probably going to not solve it or end up going a whole lot slower getting to that solution we're looking for. So I'm in support of you guys pushing this forward. Let's keep the conversation happening. Let's look at both of these ideas and continue to research and make the right decision on what will have the greatest effect economically for this area right here.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, any comments on Zoom?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, prior to the meeting, I received written comment from the Koi Nation of Northern California via email, which I then forwarded to the council and will make part of the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right.
It was on, there was a comment on this item within the letter.
Yeah, they basically to do tribal monitoring as part of that project. The city's committed to for that project. So.
All right. Thank you. Bringing it back to council, it sounds like we have a couple of different paths to go here.
Well, I just would like to bring us back a few years. This is something that has been forth, and unfortunately, nothing has ever been done. Always tabled. I recall just to start harvesting the algae back in the late 70s. There was a question of, well, what is the county going to make off of it when they started looking at. While I don't disagree with you, we want to see that sports complex done. I think we have a very unique opportunity in a small window of time. I want to congratulate. And I would wholeheartedly support this along with the Burns Valley Sports Complex and allow the congressman to make their decision. But I think this is the old technology that has never been tried before, and we could be the showcase jurisdiction for that. So.
Any other comments?
I also was around the 70s when they were trying the different harvester methods. I think they had different goals than what you did, Dan. They were looking at different things out as a project to make revenue, and the county didn't think they were going to get their part of it, I guess, so it died. also think that that Clearlake is of our industry. It's what we have as industry, tourism, and the Clearlake is the biggest part of it. So I also support anything we can do to make Clearlake more for tourists to come in. So I like this project as one possibility. Priority for us. We're well into it, and we need to see it through. I think we should have a couple small projects as possibilities as well. The skate park and what was it include in that as several other possibilities.
Okay. Councilmember Purdock, did you have another comment?
Well, just to follow up, if we do move forward, I thank Supervisor Sabatier for being here tonight. I appreciate his comments. I would hope District 3 would also be vying for this in support of our city moving forward. Thank you.
Yeses to the water project, a potential secondary plan that involves Austin Park, bathrooms and skate park as maybe an alternative if
I'd throw in Highlands Park in as a fourth one. But
we'll get to other options in a second.
I'm all for the water thing. I mean, we all know that, be honest with you, we know that's going to work for the sonic part of it. So I'm game for using all of it. Like I said, the recreation thing is important, and I think if you want a park, but I think if we start spreading it out too much, then we're going to be in a bind. So let's not keep adding. We need to really decide. I do think that we already have started the park. I think we finished the park, if maybe that one project, our recreation project, and then this water projects, those should be the three that we submit.
So just so I'm clear, you said 3 projects.
A system, and then the park over here with the bathrooms and skate park or whatever. I don't know.
that's a smaller choice.
So your priority would be Burns Valley additional funding there.
I would like to get some additional feedback from the have a system in place now. I'm always very hesitant to start with new, can't create other issues. And to be honest, I know the need, but I like to see some more background on your systems on a long-term basis. Because as far as I can tell, you have 7 years of experience with this? Okay. I like to see some data on it. And the city to spend $5 million even spend on something that is not, if we look at it back 10 years from now, they said, oh God, that was a huge mistake.
All of our documents are available. The ones with the Army Corps of Engineers are online. We did several years of studies with them. That's been proved. Corps of Engineers and through the national labs in our ability to have a breakthrough in this battle against harmful algal blooms. So we'll be more than happy to share all those reports. There also were we probably spent 1.5 years with them vetting through them. We're selected to be funded. What we're trying to do is advance it, and as it was pointed out by one of the other council members, physically takes out the food. But we'll be more than happy to provide any and all documentation that would be needed.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. Timeline on this, Mr. Fleur?
Have to submit an application by this time next week, so, apologies, we probably should have brought information to the council about this sooner. We're not going to be at a point where it's 100% proven technology in Clearlake before we decide whether to get funding and move forward, so we need to for that.
I guess I'll chime in. I was a big proponent of the airport market and public space. Air what they thought here. I agree, Austin Park, a good secondary option. I can buy need. At this point, I think we have generally.
Too late already.
Yeah.
Never too late, because even though we submit a project, if it's a project that we turn around and decide, like we get the information, we say, no, this isn't going to work, we can turn around and say, we would prefer to take that money and move it to this project. So it's never too late. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
I don't know. I mean, I think there is some potential flexibility, but it's a.
So
I'm not totally against it, because if it does work, there are issues that we're dealing with within the city. So I'm not all against it, but I'm like I said, I'm always somewhat hesitant with these kind of new technology. And I've used new technology in the past in my previous business life, and it's about 50-50 where you can actually make money on it or be successful at it. So that's my two. Huh?
We don't.
Well, here, maybe, that's why I want us to see other places that have it and see how they feel about how successful it is. I contact information for the agencies that you have worked for. I don't care about Corps of Engineers reports. That doesn't give me a whole fuzzy feeling about it. So I want to talk to the people that actually operate it and own it.
The communities.
And the communities that they're in.
Yes, we can provide information, contact information from water management districts and counties that we've worked with.
Great, thank you.
So at this point, I feel like we do have a general consensus that this. Please do your due diligence if anything comes up in, I guess, the next week or so. Unfortunately, if it warrants bringing into this.
Do we have to prioritize the projects at this point in time? I don't think we have to make them number 1, 2, and 3.
Then that's great. Water project, we have consensus on Austin?
Looks like second.
For a small project, I like Austin's.
All right. So it sounds like right now, City Manager, we would be interested in this water project, more funding for Burns Valley, and then as an alternative smaller project, Austin Park Skate Park and bathroom facilities.
Okay, do you want to have me? You want to throw a number out there?
That's
right. We can. I mean, we asked for, I don't know, 13 or 14 million last year, and we ended up with 4. So,
well, 13.
I mean, we can ask for the whole caboodle again and see. Okay. We'll crunch a little bit more numbers. I think the gap on the skate park right now is about 300 grand. Unless we'll check Supervisor Sabatier's pockets before we figure that out. And then I don't know. I mean, can scale up a lot on the bathrooms are really expensive, but I would guess something probably 250 range or something like that.
So how do you want to structure this resolution?
Well, I mean, I would say just adopt the resolution, make it clear that we have authorization to fill that out and submit it for those projects.
Community projects.
We would adjust the title to include those.
Okay.
All right. If there's no other comments, I will.
Move that we approve City Council of Clearlake Resolution number 2024-11. One, two, three, community project funding proposal.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Slutin, a second from Vice Mayor Overton.
Motion passes with the unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. City Manager report.
Just a couple of things. I wanted to let the council know that we've been our waste hauler for a little bit, and they're going to be transitioning, I think in June, there'll be information coming out to monthly billing rather than quarterly billing. They think that that's going to help the bad debt that we have and unpaid different setup than most cities because we don't have any utility billing. And so, and then if you don't pay your bill, they send the bill to the city and the city pays. Which isn't really that great, but they have moved into most of Mendocino County and Fort Bragg and all of Mendocino County now, and they've implemented this collection. People, it's easier for them to pay a monthly bill. They procrastinate when it's a quarterly, and then it's too much for them. So anyway, just wanted to let you know about that. There will be some. The slide update on Lakeshore, and we have initiated design work for a retaining wall there, but we still have not gotten any commitment of state funds, and that's all waiting. So my ask is that all of you, others, to try to put pressure on and see, if we can get that declaration. Lakeport also made a local declaration, the county. We think that we meet the thresholds, but we're still waiting on that declaration. And so really hesitant. I mean, we don't have a finished design. Expensive construction project without knowing how it's going to be paid for. So. And then Oak Valley Villas ribbon cutting was supposed to be next week. Delayed that until later. So that's the Danco project over by the community center. That's really all I have to report. Thank you.
Who I started with, Councilmember Kramer.
RA meeting, did get a small grant, about 70-some thousand, and we're going to hire a consultant to talk more about county may be able to participate in or hopefully get going. I think they presented to the board earlier this week on that, and I don't know much more about it than that, but anyhow, that's an alternate for Councilmember Slotin, Lake County Recreation, Authority, Agency. Tell me, you're the. Okay. I did a lot of listening, and if you have something to report, since you're the chair of it, I'll defer to you. One little thing, I was talking to a lady yesterday, and we talked for quite a while. Anyhow, it got around to, she visited Clear Lake here, I don't know, a week or several weeks ago. And he wanted to meet a policeman. And they went around and showed up in our parking lot of him on Officer Harden's front of his car, and Officer Harden time. So I wanted to commend our police department for their community outreach, and I think I've already picture of the 3-year-old reaching up at our mural over there with the kite flying, and she's got the picture. Well, a couple of good things about our Clear Lake. It's always good to see from people that are coming from outside the city.
Councilmember Kramer, thank you. Councilmember Purdock.
Really have nothing to report, just want to congratulate the Rotary Club of Clear Lake on another successful season.
Councilmember Slotin.
I have
Vice Mayor Overton.
I'll be quick because I have nothing to report because I was laid up with surgery, so.
One vacation, one surgery. I like it. I like the dynamic. Again, if you don't know what this is, it's a combination of the three city. We welcomed new Mayor Michael Furrio from Lakeport to the meeting, and the goal there is to really focus on recreation. So in that meeting, we talked a little bit about some capital projects that we could do around the county, one being talked about facilities over in Lakeport, and the focus should be across the whole county. So that was an opportunity for us to see some facilities down in Middleton. And we also talked about programming. So there is programming here in Lake County, and we think it's something that can be solved together with all our agencies thinking through this problem. And we are one of the wonderful recreation director who has already been leading the charge for our city, and I think that can be the example of how some of the other areas. I wanted to ask you, are you going to the Cal Cities meeting tomorrow? For the general meeting, and I'll report back next meeting. So, seeing none, we are going to now move to closed session. Thank you all.
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to also announce that we received the items for closed of Northern California via email before the meeting, which I then forwarded to the council and will be made part of the record.
Thank you so much.